Thank you to everybody for coming back. I'd like to thank Marshall Islands for sponsoring the wonderful lunch that we had. Thank you. I was very impressed by the quantity and quality of the food, and thank you, Marshall Islands, for sponsoring it. Elina, the floor is yours. I'm delighted to have Elina back with us. We were in London a couple of weeks ago, so you can say I follow Elina.
We have the difficult job to keep this room entertained, which I'm sure we will, because we've got a quite thought-provoking session today. We're witnessing a defining moment for a global shipping industry, a moment where long-term investment decisions must be made, and rapidly, in shifting sands. The topic of this panel could not be more relevant. Fleet renewal in a state of flux, decoding regulations, fuels, technology, and geopolitics. The traditional approach to fleet renewal has been fundamentally redefined. Regulatory uncertainty, decarbonization pressures, technological innovation, and geopolitical shifts are all converging, forcing owners and operators to make strategic decisions with long-term implications and at times with very limited visibility. This panel will explore the pressing questions on every shipping executive's mind. How are companies aligning their fleet strategies, evolving IMO and EU regulations? What are the risks and opportunities in adopting future fuels like methanol, ammonia, or hydrogen? How do you balance between retrofitting existing assets versus committing to new builds, and what are the trade-offs? And crucially, how are broader geopolitical and economic dynamics such as energy security, regional instability, and trade realignments impacting capital allocation and risk assessment? And to help navigate these complex issues, I'm honored to welcome a panel of distinguished leaders representing the full spectrum of the maritime value chain, from dry bulk and tankers to innovation and shipbuilding strategy. Please join me in welcoming our esteemed panelist, Dr. George Pateras, Deputy Chairman of Contships Management and former President of the Hellenic Chamber of Shipping, a key voice in maritime policy and regulation, Mr. Markos Vassilikos, Managing Director of Eurobulk, bringing insights from the dry bulk sector and hands-on experience in asset management, Mr. George Plevrakis, Senior Advisor and Head of Business Development Strategy and Market Development Europe at Hanwha Ocean, offering a perspective from the forefront of shipbuilding, innovation, and alternative fuels, Dr. Loukas Barmparis, President of Safe Bulkers, with a wealth of experience in fleet renewal and operational efficiency in the dry bulk space. And finally, but not least, Mr. Georgios Saroglou, President and Chief Operating Officer of TEN, representing the energy transport segment and providing insight into managing a diversified tanker fleet in volatile global conditions. Thank you all for being here today. To begin our discussion, I want to bring it to Dr. George Pateras, whose leadership at Contships gives us a window into how ship owners are navigating these changing tides. I note that Contships has reduced the size of its fleet, having shed 6 vessels in the first half of the year, and now operates 35 vessels. Can you explain what's the rationale behind this? Is this driven by evolving trade patterns, or is it more about replacing older tonnage and more efficient new builds? And how do regulatory pressures, fuel cost, and charter market dynamics feed into that decision?
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for this chance to speak on your panel. It's always good to be the first to speak. So actually, as of today, we're 36 ships, not 35 ships. But why? What are we doing? We're in the process of renewing our fleet. We're in the process of selling off older, less efficient ships and purchasing younger and more efficient ships, because it is our belief that environmental efficiency in the short term to medium term is the only way forward. We have to be more realistic. The long term will be nuclear. Until we get there, I think the only realistic solution is efficiency. All the other solutions are very nice solutions, but really they don't work. We don't have the time to create the infrastructure. We don't have enough of these alternative fuels, and we can't have a plethora of fuels. It has to be one. That was the beauty of fuel oil. As I said, until we go nuclear, this is our principle. We are renewing our fleet for better efficiency. Thank you.
Thank you. That gives us a clearer view into how ownership strategy, vessel age, and regulatory pressure are balancing, let's say, between risk and opportunity and the timing of that. And now turning to Mr. Markos Vassilikos of Eurobulk. Your company manages quite a diverse fleet, both bulker and also container sectors. Given that diversity, are you seeing different trends in how these segments are responding to emissions reduction and energy transition? And how have your recent new build or retrofit reflected those differences?
Elina, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to address this distinguished audience. Sorry that my English is not as good as Dr. George Pateras and yours, but I'll try to do my best. So indeed, we have a diversified fleet of bulk carriers and container ships, and we've also decided to invest in new ships. In fact, we've invested in the last 4 or 5 years, we've invested about $750 million in 17 ships, 15 container ships, and 2 bulk carriers. The rationale behind this decision is obviously energy efficiency. New ships may be as much as 40% more fuel efficient than older conventional ships, and about 20% more fuel efficient than first generation eco ships. Obviously, this efficiency comes from different things like hull form, propeller efficiency, main engine efficiency and optimization, different ESDs application, and thus we've concentrated into this sector, i.e. improving the energy efficiency of our fleet by investing in new ships, and also digitalization on board the ships and in the office. Obviously, decarbonization leaves a lot to be desired on the rest of the, let's say, issues like application of green fuels and possibly carbon capture. So our new buildings have also taken into account a possible transition into carbon capture and LNG.
Thank you. I think that just highlights how the different segments, obviously different parts of the fleet, are responding to the pressure of those decarbonizing and modernizing. If I move to Mr. Georgios Plevrakis now, given your vantage point at a leading shipyard, what strategies do you see emerging across different vessel types when it comes to energy-saving technologies, ordering new ships, and/or retrofits? Are certain technologies or design changes becoming standard requests? And how are ship owners balancing the cost of innovation, regulatory, and market demands?
Thank you for the introduction, and I'd like also to thank the organizers for yet another lovely event. That question has a lot to unpack, but what we see across all segments is the fact that they operate with the understanding that the best fuel is the fuel that you're actually not using. Therefore, there is always a demand to increase efficiency, whether that would be hydrodynamic efficiency or energy saving on the thermodynamics aspect of the vessels, or even on the electrical aspects of the vessels. Right from the gate of the shipyard, the design is optimized to serve a certain purpose. Throughout the life cycle of the vessel, we see that regulations probably dictate changes, but also there is a business case that in certain areas dictate upgrades and updates. That has led a lot of segments and designs incorporating already from the gate of the shipyard hydrodynamic enhancements, you see designs that are, if you look at the LNG carriers, you see air lubrication being installed as standard, sub-generators also being part of the technical mix. As we move towards the next milestones in that decarbonization saga, the request is also to include more things into that mix, and of course to identify how these different technologies work together towards the same target and not against each other. What we are trying to do is we are trying to establish efficient design from the beginning and stay close to that asset throughout its life cycle so that we can support it as it journeys into the smaller and smaller decarbonization footprint. Lately, we have been requested more and more to include other types of energy-saving devices or EETs, energy efficiency technologies, particularly wind-assisted propulsion. What we have seen is that these type of exercises are more often, and even on vessels that are sailing and are existing already. I look forward to actually taking a deeper dive into the challenges of how we implement these type of strategies during this panel, and I will pass it on to the next speaker at that point. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to continue on the theme of fleet renewal and fuel strategy. I'd like to turn to Dr. Loukas Barmparis, and I'm sure you get this a lot of questions, but we're still interested to hear the answer to this one. You have Safe Bulkers as a large order book, and notably, 2 of these are dual-fuel and methanol. Could you walk us through the thinking behind choosing methanol as a fuel? Why methanol? And how does this align with your broader emissions reduction roadmap and long-term fleet strategy?
Thank you, Elina. We started considering the aspects of decarbonization and of this situation that evolves basically, and we don't have a real solution ahead of us until the MEPC, which will come out next week. We started back in 2018, 2019, assessing the efficiency of existing fleet, and we had developed at that point a very concise program of upgrading the energy efficiency, which is feasible up to a point. I would say that existing fleet can, the efficiency of the existing fleet can be improved by somehow 10%. It's not more. And this is what we have done in the existing fleet, also having sold a number of older vessels. And at that point also, which was the era of COVID, we also took a decision to start investing in phase 3 vessels which were available. So in total, we ordered 18 ships, of which about 12 we have already taken delivery. And as we moved ahead, the question was whether we should continue to order conventional ships like the ones that we had already done, phase 3 vessels, or we should try to experiment with something different. The background on this thought process is the fuel EU element and the global fuel standard element, which if you have a low carbon or near to zero carbon footprint in your fuel, you have the ability to through pooling, to avoid the huge penalties which are related to the operation of the existing, of the remaining other fleet. The question was, what should we use? Methanol, hydrogen, LNG, ammonia, and the decision of ammonia, for example, is a fuel which, I mean, the engine for ammonia wasn't ready at that point, and still I don't think if it's ready or if it has been tested. So an ammonia remains highly toxic and also has a substantially larger volume for the same energy production compared to the other fuels. LNG is very advantageous, but we have a dry bulk fleet, so basically we need to spend several millions of dollars in order to do this this improvement. Hydrogen is by 4 times more the volume that you need compared to the existing fuels in order to produce the same energy. And so the methanol was the only fuel that the engine was existing, it was in operation, and the volume of the engine was twice as much as the volume of the HFO needed for the same production of energy. So we experimented that. The advantage also was that the additional cost that we need to pay for this is similar to the price of a medium-sized vessel today. So basically, when we did the orders, okay, we felt that we paid 5, 6, 7 more million compared to what a conventional fuel vessel was costing. But at the end of the day, I mean, we have 2 dual fuel vessels, which if it works, so if we have methanol, we can do the pooling. If we have GFS, which will pass, if it will pass next week, I mean, no, actually in 2 or 3 weeks' time. And also we can do the pooling with, in European Union. With a cost of about, let's say, 10, 12 million more at that point, which we felt it's reasonable, because if you have a size of about, let's say, 50 vessels, it's not a big deal to spend something more in order to have to be able to have solutions in the future. Now, in my view, I think the solution is, I mean, what the IMO should have done was to make obligatory the use of LNG for the future vessels, so that there will be equal level field. And because LNG is existing, and if you have a vessel of a phase 3 vessel with 30% lower efficiency, plus 18% of the benefit of LNG, then you could reach about 50% of carbon footprint reduction with technologies and fuels that you have. We are in a different path right now, and so we have the solutions either through efficiency or through new fuels to compete and remain competitive in the future markets. Thank you.
Thank you. It's always fascinating to hear how Safe Bulkers is integrating methanol into its future fleet when taking that calculated, diversified approach to decarbonization. Let's now turn to Mr. George Saroglou of TEN, which operates one of the most diversified tanker fleets in the market. TEN currently has a notable order book spanning from shuttle tankers, Suezmax, MR tankers. You've also recently ordered 5 environmentally friendly vessels to the fleet. Could you share your long-term fleet strategy? Specifically, how are you positioning TEN to meet future regulatory and commercial demands? And what role do you see LNG playing in the energy mix?
Thank you. Let me first of all start by saying that today is the anniversary of the EU ETS surrendering. Today is the last day that shipping can surrender emissions under this new scheme. I think shipping has performed very well. The majority, I think, of the company have managed to surrender emissions before the deadline, so I think well done to shipping for once again being able to adapt on time with regulations that are a bit complex but nevertheless necessary. We have built the company from the beginning with a few simple concepts. One of the first concepts was that we always wanted to operate a very young fleet. And fleet modernity is an integral part of the operation. In the last 2 years, we managed to sell 17 vessels that had an average age of 17.3 years and replace them with new building orders and modern acquisitions of 33 vessels. The vessels that we got were more efficient vessels and and are the beginning of our road to decarbonize. We have 6 dual-fuel Aframax vessels right now. The second fuel is LNG. You might ask how we decided to go to LNG. I will explain. We are a company that caters to the needs to our clients, and our clients are the major oil companies of the world, the energy majors. We are building the majority, and we have built the majority of the fleet almost since inception in 1993, and certainly after 1996 through orders mainly in South Korea and Japan, orders that are tailor-fit to the requirements of our clients. And we are building these vessels against medium to long-term time charters. The decision as to what type of vessel to build and also what type of fuel to use, we leave it to our charterers, the oil majors, who are the main producers and control the supply of these fuels. And we believe they know a little bit more of what is to come going forward. Obviously, LNG is the early candidate in this transitional period that the market is trying to decarbonize. I think it's evident in the order book. The majority of the new orders have been on LNG, with methanol to follow. And for companies that don't operate dual-fuel vessels, the solution is, of course, the biofuel. Biofuel and LNG, therefore, are the first fuels that are there today to help us go through this decarbonization path as the industry is trying to prepare and create more carbon-friendly fuels, zero carbon fuels. We need to spend the time in order to have these new fuels available. They're not going to come overnight. And those people who are going to give the solution to these problems are the oil majors, who lately, from what we hear, they believe that the path to 2050 is not 100% guaranteed, and maybe we need to extend it a little bit longer.
Thank you. I think your perspective highlights the complexity of managing a diverse fleet, but also keeping an eye on both current market realities and long-term energy trends like LNG. Coming back to Georgios, Plevrakis, so we've heard a lot today about the pressures facing the ship owners, but from a shipyard perspective, how are you finding then the transition in practice? Are you seeing a surge in demand that's challenging to meet? Or how are you managing the technical and logistical demands of retrofitting, particularly when it comes to materials availability, workforce skills, and yard capacity?
Thank you for that question. It's very timely, actually, because I'd like to use my time and talk a bit about how I think we should be rebranding this. We're talking a lot about energy transition. In fact, I have been part in many conferences and public speaking about how we manage and look into the energy transition aspects and how this is a value chain game. I think that somebody mentioned it during the morning panels, that this is more or less an industry transformation. So, yeah, shipping goes through its energy transition, but I think that this is more of an industry transformation, that it's a transformational game. Having said that, you have all these pieces that need to be put in place so that you can have more or less an actual outcome and a safe decision from the ship owner side. You have a constantly developing and evolving regulatory landscape. You have to secure more or less the logistics and the supply chains for the fuels that are going to be procured. So it's a transformational game for the procurement side of our industry. Mr. Saroglou mentioned actually how complicated that is actually today and how it might be even more complicated in the future. You have technologies that I briefly mentioned earlier about that are about improving the energy efficiency of the vessels, and you need to have a proper combination of those so that the business case of the asset, of the activity of the shipping company can actually utilize these technologies to the fullest. And I talked about business case. You have to have a business case, a business that actually supports this type of transitional game. And last but not least, there were a couple of panels in the morning that spoke about the digital age and the digital transformation of our industry. That is also something that we need to take into consideration. How it affects our decisions and how it will actually support the business case. Now, as far as shipyard is concerned, where do we stand? We have to be prepared for the business case of our customer. So we have to support this type of decisions. And we, as Hanwha, we are in a very, very fortunate position to have a somewhat integrated value and supply chain that can actually support this transformation, the supply chain of the raw materials that are required, the skill sets that are put in place when we're designing and developing and constructing a new vessel, even on with regards to new technologies and new fuels. Excuse me. This is something that we have invested a lot in. We have an immense experience on LNG, and that has given us quite an advantage as far as the gas cargoes are concerned, and we are building our skill sets on that. We have the technology to support other types of fuels, such as methanol and ammonia. We are also expanding our outreach to other geographical areas where skills need to be developed further so that we can support the trade in other areas and in other segments. There is a great deal of investment on our side so that we can actually be ready for the demands that are going to be put on the table in support of this energy and industry transformation. So, in a nutshell, I think that so far, if you look at the current state, we have managed very effectively and efficiently our capacity, and we will keep doing so that we can support the business case of the ship owners and our customers.
Thank you. Let's now shift focus from technology and tonnage to an equally important factor, corporate structure, and how it influences decision-making in today's uncertain environment. We're fortunate to have with us both publicly listed and privately owned companies, each navigating the energy transition, regulatory changes, and capital allocation with different expectations and obligations. Can I turn first to Dr. Loukas Barmparis, Mr. Georgios Saroglou, and Mr. Markos Vassilikos as executives of listed companies? How does being publicly owned with responsibilities to shareholders shape your strategic decisions around fleet renewal, fuel choices, and long-term investment? Happy whoever wants to take the question.
Thank you, Elina. We are public since 2008, May 2008, so it's a long period already. We always thought that there shouldn't be any difference between a public and a private-owned company and in terms of decision-making, because the decisions are not related to who owns the shares. A public company needs to have a substantial transparency and to be able to address the questions of its shareholders. It has to have a clear view and of the future actions, but by no means it should be focused on how to create a story out of nothing just because to attract additional investors. I think from our experience, we managed to work in the New York Stock Exchange with several public shareholders. We did additional offerings. We take the advantage of the markets when it was right to do so, and by issuing additional stock. The thing that we believe we managed to achieve is that we are considered one of the most respected markets, companies in terms of our public shareholders. We need also to say that the recent years, the interest of the markets towards shipping is very limited, and this has to do also with geopolitical factors, because let's say we are in the dry bulk sector, and dry bulk sector is related to China, as we all know, by 50%. This means that having exposure to China, it's the investment in having China risk is something different. It's not sometimes wanted from United States funds. But overall, we managed to have a good performance, a good strategy to renew our fleet substantially, to have new orders, to explore the dual fuel market, to have a very good ESG strategy through our ESG reporting every year. So we are very proud of this route. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got flashing red numbers at me, but I want to turn to Dr. George Pateras from your perspective.
I'll be very quick. Because I know we're speaking for too long. With 5 people on the panel, we shouldn't be more than 2 minutes per answer. So being a privately held company makes decision-making much easier and much faster, and helps us to have a consistent long-term strategy without having to compromise to uninformed pressure groups. People who are not in shipping don't understand shipping, and often you have to compromise, which we don't have to, being a privately held company. Thank you.
I just want to round the discussion just to lightly bring, not a light topic, but we've got about 6 minutes left on around the geopolitical risk, and we've got trade-offs, trade wars, tariffs ongoing, conflict, sanctions, uncertainty in sea lanes, increasing weaponization of global trade, and geopolitics is a key variable in our industry. So to all panelists, how are these geopolitical developments impacting your strategy and future investment planning? Are you seeing more regionalized fleets and different fleet sizes? But please.
If I can start. I don't think geopolitics in the long term or tariffs are our major problem. Energy is our major problem. We are not going to find an alternative fuel before fuel oil runs out. And if that happens, we're in real trouble. Because without shipping transporting goods, geopolitics is an irrelevant point. Wars will always exist. There's 16 current conflicts in the world. We only look at the ones that are useful for the press. They make a difference. And we're all uninformed about it, and we all take our own points of view without really knowing what's going on. Our biggest problem is energy. We haven't found a solution. We're not going to find a solution until we go nuclear. And let's just pray that fuel doesn't run out until we find the solution. Thank you.
Yes, on the geopolitics, I agree with Dr. Pateras that in long term we shouldn't be very concerned. However, short terms we may adjust our trading policies and decision making according to sanctions, trade sanctions, or port fees that have been imposed to trade to US ports. Tariffs, certainly, even though I think that this is not going to last for very long because it doesn't make economic sense in the long run. However, political decisions do affect our short-term decision-making. Thank you.
Thank you. One final question, I think, we've heard a lot of things today in terms of realism, diversification. Efficiency has played an important role as well, and we forget sometimes the importance of efficiency. 40% efficient from the 40% efficiency, and that is also a pathway to this transformation. What's the biggest challenge, do you think? Energy security, food security.
Again, I'll start. Energy security, yes, this is a huge problem. We've seen pipelines being attacked. I think security for energy sent the energy by ship. It's a moving target. It's much easier to protect a ship than it is a pipeline. Many more miles. We've seen that. I know I'm promoting my own business, obviously. But yes, energy security is going to be a major issue as the prices of energies go up and as we diversify and go towards nuclear. There are going to be other problems. Currently, we don't go nuclear with uranium reactors because if you steal enough of them, you can make it weapons grade. But thorium reactors with molten salt, you can't. So we will move in that direction. But yes, security in every... Cyber is another huge problem that we all see. And I'm not going to go granular and talk about the Houthis and those sort of security issues. I think we have a much bigger security problem in the world, which is cyber, which is going to start affecting all of us. Not so much the ship itself, because there's an air gap between the operations of a ship and the communications of the ship. But our offices are subject to cyber, and you can be fooled however brilliant you are. You can well be fooled, and cyber is an issue that we all need to address. Thank you.
I think that decarbonization is one of the biggest challenges in our industry. How we are going to handle this remains to be seen. Certainly we've moved forward a little bit, and the recent IMO net zero framework may provide the regulatory framework to move on. Cyber is certainly an issue and a challenge, but also crewing matters may be a challenge in the future, because Greek shipping has a problem in sourcing good seafarers, either locally or abroad, and I don't know how this will be solved. Mr. Tsakos, sitting in front of us, has done some work, and maybe he's more, how can I say, he's a specialist in the subject, and he may guide us more than I can do.
Okay, I think I want to thank all our panelists. It's been a really rich and insightful discussion with a lot of complexities to navigate. I think the conclusion, though, has to be that there are, let's say, as you put it, or business cases put forward, and there are a lot of activities happening in the space to push the transition forward, and nuclear very loud and clear on this side of the table. Well, thank you very much to our panelists. Thank you to the audience, and thank you to Capital Link for the opportunity.